I had the great pleasure as a kid to grow up at Temple Beth Israel. Not here in Scottsdale, but in Sunrise, Florida. Temple Beth Israel. I bet you're surprised to know that there are other Congregation or Temple Beth Israels all over the world, but surprise. So I got to grow up in Florida at Temple Beth Israel, and my mom, who's still a Jewish educator and still teaching Hebrew, was teaching in the religious school at Kehilah Kedoshah, and I oftentimes, when she had nowhere else to put me, sat me in the back of the classroom when I was 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and all the way through, and that's probably why I fell in love with the synagogue. And so I remember when I was done with my homework or done whatever, and I was bothering my mother, she would send me to go to the cantor's office and bother the cantor, or bother the rabbi's office, or bother the religious school director, or go bother somebody else. And so through that experience, I think I really fell in love with the synagogue, with the idea of a synagogue. It's no surprise probably that I ended up on this path. And so when I was ordained, at ordination, we get some lovely gifts from friends and from family, and I got from one of my friends it was the largest box among all the gifts. It was enormous, and it was heavy and it was enormous. I didn't know what it was. So when I got home, I opened the box up, and it was a glass like candy bin filled with butterscotch in it. And I thought, what a lovely gift to give me. As I became a rabbi, what a great thank you for the candy dish. But the note that was attached was fabulous. And it was a note from a friend of mine whose father was also a rabbi. And she said that he had on his desk the same exact glass jar filled with butterscotch, and that she and all her friends fell in love with the synagogue because they would all run over to his office and put their hands in the candy dish, and that they would have the smell of butterscotch sort of on them, and they would equate that with synagogue. And so she wanted me to have the same bowl that her father had. And so it is the glass candy bowl that is in my office that is sitting there. I switch out the butterscotch with some chocolate or whatever. I switch it out, but there's always a candy bowl. Now there's a new candy dish thanks to Jackie Cohen, who's a glass artist. Now I have 2 candy dishes in my office, but the one from my friend still sits there. And it's the connection, I think, that she had to synagogue, and the connection that I had to growing up, essentially, literally growing up in a synagogue, that I make this connection. And so a synagogue, where we are, I think at its best is a place that each of us can feel the sense of being rooted and connected, a place, despite our differences or our age or our experiences, regardless of our cultural background, our class, our sexual orientation, our physical ability, whether we're regulars or newcomers, we can feel at home at a synagogue. And so with some words from a colleague of mine in Washington, his name is Rabbi Sklut, actually. He has this great connection he makes to this concept of the love of a synagogue. And he says, with that concept of this is sort of the best place that features all of these opportunities for us to pray together and be together and to sing together and learn together. And so he says, as we complete the book of Numbers this week, which we are completing, we are doing the last 2 Torah portions in the book, which are Matot and Maseh. It's a double portion this week. By the way, for those of you who are really wondering how sometimes the Israel Torah portions and the American Torah portions don't match up, this is the week that they get reaffixed, because in Israel they only do 1 of the 2, and we're doing 2, and now we get all caught up. So I know that those of you who are stressing about that, you can relax. Whew, I can see the relief on your faces. Oh, thank you, Rabbi, for telling us why we're doing the double and they're doing the single. I know. Whew. So he says, as we complete the book of Numbers with these last 2 Torah portions, we find the Israelites are yearning for a home, for a connection, they don't have a synagogue yet because they're in the desert, but they're longing for this idea to have this idealistic place that they can be in, the synagogue they'll have. Because over the eight weeks of our Torah portions, the last 8 weeks, we've recorded almost the 40 years of a turbulence in the wilderness, and now we come to Matot and Maseh, and the Israelites are actually going home. They are entering the Promised Land at the end of this week's Torah portion. And so they're standing on the eastern bank of the Jordan River. For those of you who have been to Israel, you can picture that, the Jordan River on the eastern bank of the Jordan River. They're literally at the doorstep of the Promised Land, and this is where Moses prepares the people to enter the land. And so Moses knows he's about to die, and he's aware of that. He's passing the baton on to Joshua, and so he's preparing everyone. He's preparing for them for 4 books, from Exodus into Leviticus, into Numbers, which ends, and he'll still prepare them, even in his summary that he's going to do of so far the entire Torah, into the book of Deuteronomy. And so he is preparing them, and he is preparing them for them to go home, for them to enter the Promised Land, this place that we all call home, like we call our synagogue home. And so the word synagogue has its origin in Hellenistic culture, in Greek culture, and in the 2nd century, it became a universal name, the synagogue, the Greek name, which then switched to Hebrew, and the translation became Beit Knesset. And so, what's the literal translation of Beit Knesset? Do we know? House. I heard people say house. Beit, good. What's Knesset? Yes, who said that? Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. House of meeting, or that is exactly what it was called. And so to this day, the only Hebrew words we have to describe the thing we're sitting in right now is a Beit Knesset. It is a house of gathering. And that's what we're doing. That's what we do when we're here. In that gathering, we get to pray, and we get to laugh, and we get to sing, and we get to mourn, we get to comfort, we get to eat. And it all happens in this Beit Knesset. And so we gather regularly with one another to mark time, to share the joys and the sorrows. And so what the Torah portion, I think, connects to the idea of a synagogue and how we connect is it sort of begs the question for us in this idea of the Israelites standing on the banks of the Jordan. When we gather, particularly in our synagogue, who is gathering in the synagogue? Who do we have come in here? Who is missing? Who are the people we are not inviting? Who are the people we are welcoming? Who are the people we're not yet welcoming? Are the doors open enough for everyone? Are our hearts open enough for everyone? So no community, even this one is fabulous as it is, this Kehilah Kedoshah, this holy community, no community is perfect. There's always room for us to grow. Yet this week, as we close the book of Numbers, Matot, which means tribes, because the tribes are all standing to enter the land. Maseh, which means journeys, because they're about to journey into the Promised Land. As we stand here and close this book, and as all of us stand on that eastern shore on the River Jordan, imagining how our congregations would become more open and more welcoming, more appreciative of people of differing backgrounds and experiences, I invite all of us on this Shabbat, as we end Chazak, Chazak v'ni Chazek, as we move from strength to strength as ending a book and moving into a book, I invite all of us this week to think about our Torah reading, which unites us and allows us to ponder and how we can find a way to transform our synagogue into the Promised Land. So when we stand together and move forward on this journey, what will that Promised Land look like? And how will we make it our own? And how will we make this holy space, just like the Israelites were longing for, a holy space for everyone and for these doors being wide open? Shabbat Shalom.